Agree with the moderator nor Reverend Robinson that we want some kind of agreement. We want agreement by which we can live or die. You choose. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillars. Should you try to pretend that I'm crazy because I want America to be saved? And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?
You know what? My bad. Can you hear me now? Folks, can you hear me? Yes? Somebody put yes in the chat if you can hear me. Okay, cool. Yeah, stupid me. I had my mic was turned off. So And listen, that soliloquy I just had is like gold. I could never redo it. So, well, let me try again. Anyway, like I said, hello to BMU. Thanks for letting me use your channel. CBN in the background. I got a few things to say about men and marriage, and we're gonna go through a few things. I got a couple of questions I'm gonna ask the chat, and we'll get to it as I go through this. I don't think I'm gonna be so long with what I have to say, but one of the things, and I'm gonna say this again, that I like this opportunity to speak to folks because I consider myself the guy next door, and why do you have to be an athlete or somebody, actor or somebody to say what you need to say to other people? We all have experiences, and some of our experience, no matter whether you're the person next door or an astronaut or successful or not, we all have some experiences that might be useful to other people. And if it is, you take that, and if it's not, you just put it on the shelf. So today we're going to be focusing on men who want to be married. That's the primary focus. But everybody's welcome to chime in. If you have, if you have some thoughts that would be beneficial, feel free to chime in, put it in the chat or whatever. When we drop the greetings, when we drop the link, you could always come up as well. Okay, here's another thing I plan to do. I'm gonna do my very best to keep this about men. I don't think we need to have a conversation that involves pointing fingers at women to talk about what men needs and what men want. At some point, we'll have to include some aspect of how we interact with females in order to have, or women, in order to have a well-rounded conversation. But I'm not going to make this he said, she said thing. We do that, they do this. I want to move past that because we got enough to do as men to, I guess, recapture our rightful place at the top of the food chain. And that's where we're supposed to be. And don't let anybody tell you different. The world works better when men are in charge. It's as simple as that. And, we could argue that. But I think a lot of women would agree with that as well. So I got a couple of questions for the men out there, for the married men and the men who want to be married. What are the top 6 attributes or behaviors you would like your wife to have or your fiance to show you before you marry her? What's the top 6 things that you want? Now, it could be less than 6, but let's not make it more than 6. What are you looking for from your woman, from your wife? Okay, that's one question. And before you get married, before you were married, how did you vet her to make sure she would be able to fulfill your requirements before you asked her to marry you? Where was your confidence? How did you get confidence that she was going to do the right thing? Right? And then the last thing here's another question. Were you looking for a partner or were you looking for a wife? There's a difference. And I'd like to know that question. And we'll come back to that. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you have to write them down, your top 6, what did you do to vet your woman, and whether you were looking for a partner or a wife? And for some men, when I hear them say they're looking for partners, I kind of cringe, but we could talk about that. So I'm going to slow down just a little bit. Just a brief reflection. I want to reflect a little bit about my early dating life and how it gave me insight as to how to deal with females, how to deal with women, because my dating life was pretty short, right? I was 17. From 17 to 26 was my dating life when I was actively involved with different women in different relationships, so that means like 1 year before college, my college years, and a couple of years while I was a working man when I started working, as an engineer for the Department of Defense. So it wasn't a lot of time that I was out there, fooling around with a lot of women, but there were some distinct things that happened to me when I was going through that process. And I'm not going to go through all the gory details, but I want to kind of say a few things. One, and I think it helped shape how I deal with women today. See, I was one of those kind of guys who had to cultivate relationships with ladies. You know, um, I know you can't tell by looking at me, but I was no Casanova. You know, I wasn't. So I had to actually, learn, talk to some ladies and cultivate relationships from time to time so they could be interested in me. So, I'm self-deprecating a little bit because I know some guys who didn't have to do anything to get girls. That wasn't me. But the one thing I can say is I was never afraid to approach women. Never, ever, even at a young age. So I mean, I wasn't determined to to go through life without no girlfriends. Anyway, so let me just put it to you this way. I had a couple of relationships I think I took something from, and I want to share a few of them with you. I'm not going to go into the gory details, but my first girlfriend, when I was 17, she was a little older than me. She was 20, I think 19 or 20. And what I took from that relationship was that she helped me navigate the woman's body. That's what she did. She told me what the hell to do, you know, and uh, and I was a willing participant and a pretty good student. So, and she was more than that, but that's what she did. She provided that. My next girlfriend, when I went to college, she broke my heart. She ripped me a new one. She was actually today we would call her 304. She was a girl from the streets, and she was going to college though because she was trying to change her life, and which I admired her for, and so I fell for her. And boy, the streets always were calling her back, and I fell for her. So I had to get over that, So and I did real quick and in a hurry. And so that told me something about how you have to guard your heart when you deal with women. And then the third chick, uh, after that, soon after that, was a sister that I met when in one of my classes, and she went out. We was hanging out. She came over to my apartment, and she got drunk. I mean, she was drunk as a skunk. And I just, I put her. I laid her. She went to bed. I sent her to bed, took off her shoes, put the covers over her, and let her sleep it off. Right. So me and my roommate, we were cooking dinner. She got up and she went, cleaned herself up and got something to eat. And then later she told me, she says, wow, I'm so surprised you didn't try to take advantage of me. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you look like a corpse. I'm not going to fool around with you. Are you kidding me? So what I learned from that was that, women have like an emotional bank account, right? That every so often you got to put deposits in. She was so appreciative that from that sophomore year to the time I left college, no matter what she was doing, no matter what I was doing, she always came over to hang out with me for weekends and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she just like I was just the guy for her, And not I don't know, we were just like friends with benefits. But I understood then, and I didn't think about that, what that means now, that whole thing about an emotional bank account. I didn't look at it back then. But I understand it now that with my wife and with women in general, guys, every so often you got to put deposits in their emotional bank account because, and it don't have to be a lot. I'm not even talking about money. I'm just talking about do things to make them feel appreciated that they're your girl, you know? So anyway, so my whole thing is, so that's what I did, and filling up the emotional bank account as a guy is important because we burn it up. You got to put deposits because we actually burn the deposits. So every so often you got to, we burn the credits. That's what I should say. So every so often you need to kind of replenish your lady. And a lot of guys don't do that. That's why you get run into trouble. All the things you did to court her, to get her to fall in love with you and everything else, you can't stop doing that when you get married. You just can't. And you don't have to go overboard. Just a little goes a long way with a lot of women. I think some people don't understand that. Anyway, some men don't understand that. So anyway, so let me just keep going for a little while longer here because I have a video. Maybe we're not ready to look at it just yet. Uh huh. I'm looking. Hey, fellas, people in the chat. Hello, how you doing? Some new folks just came up. I'm glad to see you. Anyway, just to finish this particular segment. Yeah, that's good for that one. So why do men get married in this day and age? Why do we do it? We know all the pitfalls. So why do men keep trying to get married? I mean, that's the good question, right? Believe it or not, black men and black women are still getting married today. Back in my day, 68% of the folks got married in the 80s. Now it's down to 35%-ish people getting married. But why is that happening from a man's perspective? We know the pitfalls. If you make a lot more money than your woman, from state to state, you can get, burned, but guys still want to get married. It's not like we don't. The fact that we don't get married is not a money issue per se. The men have their issues, but the women don't want to get married either. So it's a group thing. But when you do get married, uh, nobody's worrying about, the state and all that kind of stuff. Is you just want that other person. So I think the answer is really simple for men. I think men in general, we always like the main squeeze, the chick that's our own. Some guys who might be fooling around with a lot of women, they still want their main chick, no matter what. So I think guys like to have that so-called possession, that ownership, quote unquote, of the woman that's just theirs. So that's why I think men still get married. And I just think it's a natural thing. Men and women are meant to be together. So BMU, CBN, we don't have that. Is that video ready? Or we still can't do it? All right. So listen, so I could speak through it. There's a video with Myron from Fashion Frit and Sneeko. And they're talking about, Myron's talking about having a life that he doesn't need women in his life at all. And Sneeko was saying, well, why is life worth living if there's no women around? And they go back and forth, and it's pretty funny. So we don't have the video right now, but if it comes up, I'll play it. The point is this. I can't see a world without women. I don't know where Myron was coming from, but I mean, whether you marry them or not, well, what kind of world would we live in if there wasn't any women around? What kind of men can think that a world devoid of women is a good world? I think that's crazy, So I think he was tongue in cheek, but he acted like he was really serious. So in this one, I could go with Sneeko, who was thinking he was crazy as well. So it's a funny video. So anyway, I just can't imagine a world without women. I mean, just the smell alone is enough to turn me off. So, who wants hard legs all around them all the time? It's kind of crazy. So, let's go on to talk about if you need a wife and you want to get married, what do you do? Uh, do you get married today in today's world without a prenuptial agreement? Or what kind of protections do you think you need to marry the girl of your dreams? Right? If you're not worried about it at all, that's how I was. But that was back in the 80s. You know, I don't think people got divorced back then. Matter of fact, women needed the resources from men a whole lot more back then than they do now, right? Because in the 80s, women didn't have the high powered jobs. They weren't as much in the workforce as they are now. So, but I didn't have that much when I married my wife. She was working and I was working. I was just a little bit more, I had just a little bit more salary than she did. So I didn't even think about a prenup, but it was a different world back then. But women still were divorcing men. They were still getting good money. They were getting alimony, but I didn't even think about it. But I'm not so sure men can navigate that way in 2023. The ones who do, I think they're brave, especially if you get married later in life. Let's just say you're 40 years old and you accumulated some real estate, maybe some family heirlooms, stocks, bonds, and all that kind of stuff. Do you really want to put that in jeopardy without having a prenup? That's what I'm saying. So I think men don't need to be afraid of getting married as long as you have a prenup, and the prenup won't take away all of your risk, but it's a big risk mitigator. And so all you have to do is follow a few steps to protect yourself, and then you can enjoy the bliss of being married. The long-term commitment with a long-term relationship is okay, but it's not a commitment, right? I mean, it's not a real commitment, not by you or by her, since the back door is always open. You might think it is, but it's easier to walk away. So I tell guys, if I had to counsel anybody, if you're going to get married today, if you're a man or if you're a breadwinner as a woman, women, when they're the breadwinners, they definitely want prenups. But if you're a guy and the woman you ask to marry you and you tell her you need a prenup and she tries to buck up against that, you just got to tell her, say, listen, if you're married to me, you have access to everything. But when you leave, or if you leave, I don't think I should give you all the stuff that you might ask for, but we could negotiate something that will be pleasing to you and to me. I don't think a woman should leave with nothing if you're the one who's the breadwinner, but I don't think she should take everything either. So, and you can fix that with a properly worded and vetted prenup between lawyers, fashioned for the state that you're in. You got to just make sure that it's signed like 6 months before the wedding, and they don't throw those things out. And prenups don't cover child support. So that kind of goes to, men, marriage. I tell guys, listen, men are the gatekeepers of marriage, right? And sometimes in the newfangled world, some people get that twisted, because a woman has to say yes. But that doesn't change the fact that you have to open the door. You as a man, you take accountability for the woman you let into your marriage, into your household to become your wife. That's your accountability. I mean, if the marriage fails, of course, it's the responsibility of both of you. But you're accountable for who you let in. You can't deny that. And look at Joe Smith. Look at his wife and what she's doing now. Not only with OnlyFans, but I think she went back to hardcore porn, corn, whatever we're gonna call it. He's accountable for marrying her. There's no way that you can build yourself out of the mud become a star basketball player, and see the things that he's seen and can't look past marrying a woman who shouldn't be married at all, and he did it. And now he's, I guess, reaping the whirlwind. He looks bad in front of all his peers, his family, his friends. She's making him into a laughing stock. And he's accountable for that. He can't turn that away. So that's kind of the same thing as, and I'm gonna say this one thing about the ladies. You're accountable for your womb. Nobody else is. If you fool around with some dusty bum and you let him raw dog you, you're accountable for letting him in. Well, you're both responsible for the result of having a kid or whatever. But the accountability is yours. Nobody else could be accountable for your womb but you. When you scream, "My body, my choice," that's what that is. So the gatekeepers for marriage is the same kind of thing. Joe Smith, the basketball player, he's 100% accountable for what his wife is doing to him now, because he should have never married her in the first place. And there's a whole bunch of different examples of that. So men, you got to be very careful with your vetting process. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. But if you don't do it at all, or if you just marry for love, lust, and things of that nature, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. So, and we could drop the link now. If anybody wants to come up and chop it up, that's cool. Thanks, BMU. I saw Trey Ferg in the chat. So that goes back to the questions already, and that's where we are now. What's the top attributes, guys, that you have and behaviors that you have for your woman to be your wife? What do you think is at the top of your list? You can list 6 things or less. When you were courting her, how did you figure out that she would live up to your expectations, if you did at all, or you just took a chance? And, were you looking for a partner or were you looking for a wife? And there's a difference, and we could chop it up on what we think the differences are. So also had a thing about men marrying for love and how big a mistake that is. There's got to be more to it than that, even though love is in the vows. It's not at the top of the list. But, you need to have more than just the emotion of love, even if it's an action. Sometimes the action doesn't look like love, but the actions are required. But, you look at Tyrese Gibson, who wears his heart on his sleeves, and he hasn't done too well by the women he picks and by what he gives them without requiring anything back. If you ask me, that's what I think about him. So does anybody want to come up? And we could go back to some of the things I've said. I know I went through it fast. We have some videos that we just couldn't play right now. Hopefully we can get those working. And they could lend to the conversation. So, Easy Money Jones, what's going on, brother? Love is not at the top of the list. Respect is. Respect is. Love is on the list, but respect is at the top of the list. For me, you can make your own list, Easy Money. Make your own list. Tell me what your list is. What's your list of 6 things? Or are you afraid to put them up there? I'd be interested in to hear. You know what I'm saying? Oh, man, come on up. Let's talk about it. So my list, I will get to my list. I want to hear some other folks' list. Hey, Trey Ferg, what's going on, man? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
I was on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah.
How you doing?
How you doing, man? Happy Monday, man.
I'm up here rambling, man. Somebody save me.
No, I couldn't leave my bald-headed brother up here, my bald-headed, dark-skinned brother. I you do have a few years senior on me, but I do like to catch those words of wisdom, to go in between the young and I guess I don't know what generation I'll be falling in, but
you're an Xer, man.
yeah,
You're a Gen Xer.
See, they ain't know what this product was gonna turn out, and we still rocking out here. So I appreciate all the X's. If I'm an X, then I'm gonna be an X to the end. It's just I don't know. It's just a state. It's a scary state to be in right now. And I'm not speaking for us old heads. We done live life and made good decisions, bad decisions. Some of us have chose to be single. Some of us have chose to be married. Some of us have been married, been single, remarried. I think a lot of us in that realm, we do strive ultimately to be married, to complete that cycle.
Right.
I just think, again, the younger male and female, they haven't really been able to see the benefits of it, because that's all they see. Like you said, since early 2000s, a lot of divorces.
Right.
There's just been a lot of divorce rates, a lot of families and homes broken up. So, and a lot of those guys that were starting out in their prime, they're just, it's just a lot of mess that's been going on. So now you're hearing the voices of not even the masses, it's just people who had opportunity to be in those spaces, just to speak out and say, we don't need each other. We don't need another person. We don't need, it's a lot of that cheerleading but it ultimately hurts us deeper.
Yeah, but do you think that's the majority or just a loud minority?
No, it's not the majority, but though, think about it. It's
loud enough.
But it holds greater effect to be on a microphone in front of thousands of people and have access than to me walking down the block where it's, just on the block being heard. And
I'm with you. Yeah, I just wanted to hear you say. Let me ask you: do you have a top 6? What are you looking for? You're married now, though, right?
Yeah, man.
What's your list, brother?
I don't know how. I don't know.
So it don't have to be 6. It don't have to be 6. It could be 5. It don't have to be in that order. Well, what's on the list?
I can give you 3.
Okay, that's cool.
Live by, coming in. And it was talk to me, feed me, and freak me. That was it. It didn't have to be in any particular order, but I do like for, to have conversations about social studies, about civics. That's the type of mind I have. I like to talk about those things, how the world is moving, how cities, how, the capacity of us as a people are moving. I love those conversations. I do love a woman that can cook. That was one thing I was big on. Be able to cook. You didn't have to cook, but be able to cook. Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthday, I want all that. I want the spread. I don't need all that. Take me out to dinner and $500. No, I don't need all that. We can use $500 and go on a trip, get a couple of plane tickets, fly somewhere, or drive somewhere, whichever. I just been blessed to have a wife like I do. And freak me. That's enough said about that. But
so I hear you. So
and I like looks. I'm a natural guy. I'm more organic. I'm more, like you mentioned, scents. I like the scent of a woman, the natural scent, fresh out the shower, fresh out the tub. You know what I'm saying? You've been soaking in some warm, hot water, and I like that organic smell to radiate. I like natural hair. I've always been into natural hair. I done took some wigs. I done had and just flung it around like I was a cowboy as a grown man. And I had sisters, and back when I was young, my sisters, nobody wore wigs and weaves, stuff like that. So I'm used to that. I can take some hair in the sink if it's some natural hair, it's some real hair. You know what I'm saying? But the weave, I just ain't never got into it. Then when I saw Baps, when I was a young man, I said, okay, they making fun of sisters wearing these wigs and weaves and all this.
And it turned out to be
their uniform. That's the uniform. It became a uniform. And now they done took that, and now they done took it away from the hair, just be the hair. Then they started wearing makeup. I hated makeup. I hate makeup. And now It's the
Well, the
argumentation.
Baps had the original BBLs too, didn't they? Enhance their butts too?
It's the argumentation of it, but you know they had the little slide in, the little slide.
Yeah, I know, but they exaggerated it. They did the
a
fake
spoof.
BBL.
It was a spoof to make fun of that ghetto quoted type of woman. But
That's
now
right.
those type of women are our voices. They
Unbelievable.
are our voices. They're allowing those people in those type of uniforms, even guys, you know, that wants to show the
uniform,
sag and puff. That's a uniform. They got to put up, and they have to display those behaviors that come with the uniform. That's part of it. You know?
So listen, the way we want to. So, but getting back to what the men have to do, right? So in truth, a lot of those ladies make themselves unmarriageable because of the behavior and all that kind of stuff. But some of what I like to focus on is what a man wants to do and how he looks to find a woman that is marriageable, right? And what I think where men go wrong, and I just want to lead it back to this, is that a lot of guys look at all women like piece of meat. And so if they run into, because we have the natural imperative to want to screw almost all the ladies out there, depending on your age, right? If you don't have that discernment. So if you run into a woman that you should slow down and get to know a little better, if all you're thinking about is stroking her, you might miss it, right? You might miss an opportunity for a good woman, right? That's what I think. I think sometimes guys, in their urge to get into the lady's pants, they might miss. And I'm not talking about the BBL chicks and all that kind of stuff. Some women eliminate themselves off the rip. Some do. And it's not worth trying to change them into housewife. Like Joe Smith, you know Joe Smith, the basketball player. He had no business wifing that chick up. None. He knew everything about her before he married her. I mean, you know, how are you going to marry somebody who does porno? I mean, corn. You know, and she was doing that since she was 17. And we had a video on that. But she explains her early life from 17 to, you know, her early years in corn and stuff like that, you know, but she didn't hide that from him. You know, he married her anyway. And I think a lot of brothers still like easy money. And I'm not saying he's going to do this, but he married for love, right? Now, love is a part of it, but it has to be more than that, right? You know, because love is still an emotion, even if they call it an action verb. You know, at some point, you know, it has to be the actions behind why you're with somebody that matter, whether you call it love or not. And so for me, the top thing is respect. And I have my own list. I was thinking about it, you know, and my list is, I mean, there's nothing special about it. Because I think, I'm going to just say it to you, right? I like respect, right? My wife respects me and I respect her. We don't embarrass each other. We don't even try to do that. We know better, right? She knows better for me. I know better for her, right? How we present ourselves to people, how we talk to each other, all that kind of stuff, how we interact in front of our children. You know, I like loyalty from my wife, right? You know, and I'm not saying blind loyalty if I'm doing right or wrong, just the kind of loyalty you'll give somebody that you cleave to, right? Me, it's us against the world as long as we're doing right, you know. I like my woman to be exclusive. This whole notion of, I mean, it sounds simple, but not, and these days it doesn't sound simple, right? People are doing open marriages and all that kind of bull crap. I ain't with it. Don't even see, let me tell you, I've seen examples of a guy where a woman comes to him with a suggestion that they open it up. The suggestion enough is to tell, it's giving you a message. You know what I'm saying? I don't even suggest anything like that to me. You should know better, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're suggesting that, you know, then that means you're already doing it. You know, as far as I'm concerned. Hold on for a second. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Let me give you a couple other things while we're at it. I want I want my wife, just like you said, to be accessible to my needs, right? I'll be accessible to her. She could be accessible to mine. And for men, If she's your only conduit for sex, then you want her to be accessible, right? That's what I wanted. And that's on the list. I mean, that's important, right? You know, I want her to be dedicated, you know, to the vows, you know, dedicated, and then nurturing the kids. That's like my top of the list, you know. So you dedicated to the vows, that includes love. All right. Hey, BMU, what's happening? You said we're ready?
Yeah, well, I have one of your
Which one?
videos will be ready, and probably the first one with Fresh and
Sneeko?
Fit. Yeah, with Fresh and
Yeah,
Fit. So give me about 30 seconds.
yeah. Cue that one up. So Trey, you know, that's my list. I want Easy Money to come up here and tell me what, or right here's in the chat. What you want, Easy Money? What's your list? You know?
Now, brother, I'm paying even, you know, with those things that I said, you know, that's just from a surface level, you know, as far
Right.
as what I want, just to make it relatable to somebody, excuse me, that I'm just meeting, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then as we're able to have conversations, I'm breaking it down piece by piece. Now, that talk to me, that may be 25 things in that, you know, you know,
I hear
feeding.
you.
Like I said, I grew up, my mom cooked dinner a lot for 7 children, and my father, you know, we ate good meals. Ain't no small babies and ain't no overweight babies. I was technically the biggest person in my family in high school, playing football, playing running back at 185 pounds.
Oh,
That was me. I was the big guy. Everybody else was, you know, nice and fit and slim and petite. My mother was like 5'5", 5'6", about 150 pounds, you know, but she was in her 40s and 50s, you know what I'm saying? So I expect that. But my mother had 6 sisters, and all of them were fine. All of them had husbands. 7 girls had husbands. None of my mother's sisters were single. They all were married until death.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I grew up on. So, you know, it's definitely, you know, as far as what you expect, a lot of men don't see those things that they say they want as far as marriage. They didn't see auntie and uncle married. A lot of young adults, they didn't see that. They didn't see, you know, I have much respect for my single mothers of the past. They raised a lot of good men. A lot of good men and women went to college, did what they supposed to do, created families from that. I respect that hands down. There's nothing stronger than a woman that was post-slavery up into the 60s. They was the strongest women ever. They stood by their man. They walked with them. They walked in their heels. We ate the same food. We talked the same language. When we went to these places of worship, we still communicated the same. Wasn't none of them women talking about, I want to be out here single by myself. No. Times changed. The government understood what could happen with the buying power coming into these new places, people moving from the south to the north. They understood that come without your family, come by yourself, and put them in a trap. This is just a result of that trap that was set years ago.
I hear you. Hey, what's up, Red Planet? Hey, listen, BMU, if you're ready for that video, you can play it. Hey, man, what's going on? If the video comes up, then we'll hit that, and then you can speak. This Sneeko, this one is here. They're having this conversation. Go ahead.
Yo, Myron is so fucking heterosexual. He's like, we don't need women to survive. I'm like, well, you know, life is better. He's like, we don't need them. We don't. What's the point of even arguing for that? Like, what's the point of living if there's no women? There's no point.
I'm saying we don't need them to survive, is the point.
But there's no point in living, so you're not going to want to survive.
But you can survive without them.
Why would you survive if there were no women? Why would you even do it?
There's other ways to derive pleasure where you don't need females. Women are a luxury, bro.
I mean, listen, I was going to say when I was going through it, at that point, you know, are you team Byron or team Sneeko? You know what I'm saying? Because there's no way. I don't know where my man was coming from. You know what you mean? I couldn't live without women. That's just crazy. I don't care how much of a pain in the ass women are. Ain't no living without them. Absolutely. And what say you, Red Planet? What's going on, brother?
Yeah, that's definitely true. Men and women, we meant to be together. As much as we go through, with different situations, um, they are like real gun ho on the content is male content, but there's still a place for women, even though there's a lot of headaches and different things, and with modern women, we still need that companionship. We need to work together. We need to it enhances each other in a lot of ways. We enhance each other, especially a good healthy relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, listen, do you are you married, man? Are you married? Were you married before or what?
I was married, I'm divorced.
Okay. How long were you married?
It was about 3 years.
Okay. All right. Well, we
Yeah.
don't have to get into the personal reasons, but okay, so you have a taste of marriage. You have a taste.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you get married again?
Honestly, to keep it a buck,
Yeah, okay.
um, I would only I would only take serious a foreign woman, a foreign bride. I've seen what's going on in America, and honestly, I don't think I could do it within another American,
I
an
hear you.
American woman. I'm not trying to diss anybody, but another American woman, I don't know if that's fits for
Well,
me.
it's Western. We say American woman, but it's really Western woman, and that's spreading around the
Yeah,
world, brother. So the way women live in the West is envious around the world. And the only thing that keeps the rest of the women in line is the culture that still exists in their own habitat. Because once those cultural mores break, they're going to be just like the Western chicks. A lot of them already are. Because I follow some of the passport bros,
hmm
and they talk about a lot of those ladies. There's enough of those ladies who speak just like women from America. Trust that. Trust that, because the internet has made the world small. Every day they see what's going on. And there's no freer women in the world than here in the West, in America especially. And women are envious of that shit. So so if you're gonna be a passport bro, you better hurry up.
I think they've let women weaponize so many things against men that is
Who's they?
a lot of
Who's
women,
they?
not all women, but a lot of women just can't resist. They can't resist a lot of
Well, let's not make it
these
about women,
opportunities.
right?
Like,
Well, let's not make it about women. Who's they?
Yeah, who's
And
that?
if men
the,
made
the
it that
government,
way, no,
yeah,
no, no, no,
yeah,
no, 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 no. Men. Let me tell you, you know what? We say that we're not in a patriarchal society. The only way a matriarch can exist is that the patriarch lets it. And so the puppet masters are men, and they're doing it, I think we keep missing that. The fact that feminism and all this crap has taken hold is because men allowed it. Those corporate heads looking at money, those guys are men. So I'm just telling you. I mean, I think we kind of miss it. I mean, women are controlled, but only because men allow it. That's how I look at it. I mean, we could debate that. That's just my thought. I don't know about you, Trey. How you feel about that? We only have the illusion
You
that
know,
women are in control of everything.
it was sort of already, the ball was already rolling back when I was a child and growing up. It was already there. I saw it in my friends' houses and the neighborhoods. All of us saw it all over the country in the projects, in the public housing area. We saw that. We saw feminism already in activation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see women fighting against men. I saw them already moved on to their new place with their 2 or 3 children. But I also saw mothers understand that they still had a mission towards the children, and they could go get daddy up the block to get nugged together and slap him across his head. He'd be mad for a few days, but at least he was getting together. I still
Right.
saw the same brothers and sisters graduating high school at 98%. And well, let me say this: 80% were actually walking. Another 18 was getting a GED. We had about 2%. That's a 98%. That's an A++ in any school you go to, college, high school, whatever. But then I saw the shift change when I saw New Jack City come out. The shift changed completely. It changed drastically because it showed the image of the after effect of homes being ran by mothers, drugs being taken over all the communities where the population of African Americans were over 50%. I saw that. I was a young man growing up in that. I saw the baby mama culture developing right before our eyes because women have always had children young, but the mother had a mission to her children once that child was hurt. Once crack took the mother out the home, a lot of our brothers, I don't know how you are.
We got the second video coming up too.
Red Planet, but I think you was in that age where you was probably a kid when you saw the devastation taking over.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the after effects of, a lot of the after effects of a lot of the women I've dated were affected, like you say, by their mothers not being in the home, their mothers with the drug influences and stuff. I've seen it on that level, and that's when I saw the switch, at least from my eyes, from what I saw as a kid in relationships versus what I saw as me actually dating as an adult in relationships, you know.
But you saw it from the point of view of the man too, because a lot of those children, just like the men, didn't have a father in the home. And once their mother was gone, there was nobody balancing out those children's thoughts. Nobody was doing that. And now they all are adults now, and they're still fighting. They're fighting relationship battles. I don't remember going out and hanging, whether it was at the park, the playground, the game room, males and females, we could get together and have. You had your friend, she was a tomboy, but she was fine because she climbed a tree better than you. I never saw it as a young man where a girl could outdo me in anything. You couldn't outdo me in nothing. I don't care. You couldn't outsew me because I wanted to make sure that I'm, you know what I'm saying? But now, I mean, I saw you can see the shift change. Guys walked around with their chests out, not their asses out. We were washing our own clothes, doing everything independent. A lot of us was turned latchkey kids, what they call latchkey. But when mama came home, it wasn't chaos at the home. It was you was on your shit because the person that they couldn't call, you can get in trouble wherever. The person you didn't want nobody to call was mama. Don't call my mama, man. Because you know mama came with that heat. Mama ain't coming cussing out everybody talking about y'all fuck with my baby. Leave him alone. But then when he grew up to be 6'9" and get on her nerves, these kids out here, you can't do nothing. No, I don't remember that. This is a new phenomenon. That's why I trip off it. That's why here's my last thing. Here's my last thing. That's why I pledge for the brothers 40 and under. Man, go back and apologize to some of your friends whose brothers you took out. Go back and apologize to some of those mamas, some of those sisters, some of those young women. Take their sons and say, come on, man, let me show you different. Because you know the difference. Just act on it, because that's the only way we're going to build. Other than that, 40-year-old whining ass girl or boy, man, you're gonna see that message continue. So,
well, I tell you what, you know, I think there's enough folks who say there's no going back. You know, there's some people say there's no going back. It's like we can only go forward. Hey, Doc, what's going on?
But don't we go forward can we go forward without apologizing first? If we don't apologize, because that breaks a lot of the pain, because people hold on. A lot of us hold on to pain for 30 years.
Hold on. I'm going to read this one. Okay, so Easy Money has a list, right? Yeah, one smart, honest, compassionate, loyal, funny. Well, that's cool. That's good. So where's your love? I thought you said love was number one, brother. Yeah, that's what you put in. Easy Money Jones. Anyway, so that's your sixth one, love. This one is for you, Trey Fur. You say never was a 98% graduation rate, even with GEDs. You know, it's true. Anyway, listen. Hey, if you got the other one, that other video queued up with Keisha Smith, whatever her name is, it'd be nice to play that little short segment of where she goes through her little background. Yeah, from not from the beginning, but from I guess from the minute mark, and she gets a little background. And only thing I wanted to do with that was to say, yeah, something like that. That's good enough, right? Why would anybody marry this woman? And that's the only question I would have. I don't care who you are, unless you're in the life with her. Why would you marry? Yeah, I guess you could play it up.
About, I think, 17 going on 18, and I was a runaway at that time. I met Heather Hunter. And she was featuring at Show World, and she was like a star to me. And I was like, oh, I'll be a star too. And so I went to a couple of her shows, and I hung out there and caught her attention, and she took me under her wing.
Really?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you were just off on this journey?
I was her lover, and then we did Heather Hunter's home movies with her roommate / lover.
So you were her lover. You were like fully in a relationship with her?
Yes.
But did she have multiple lovers?
Yes.
Okay. So
I was her live-in lover at the time.
Really? For how long?
Like a couple of months until she got tired of me.
Were you gung-ho about the relationship?
I'm still madly in love with Heather. Like, I love her so much to this day. We're friends now. But like, yeah, I always will have like deep love for her. Like if she was like, bitch, come, let's do this. I was like, okay.
But so that's when you started shooting?
Yes.
And who'd you first shoot with? Because this is like the wild west days.
For a Vidway video.
The back in the day world. Like, now everything's smooth. You got OnlyFans. You got a couple of the big porn companies. Some of the smaller ones. Back in the day, it seemed like it was just craziness.
It was. I worked for Vidway.
Don't go away. Just pause it for a second. See that little caption? Keisha Chavis on doing a Burkaki whatever scene with 5 guys. You know what that scene? You know what that scene? I guess any man who knows a little bit. That's a serious scene. It's some of the nastiest things a woman could do on screen. You know, I don't know how a guy could marry a woman like that. And I think he deserves all the embarrassment he gets right now. I think we've seen enough, you know, of her. I'm just thinking as a man, you know, who's supposed to be responsible for the gate of letting a person in of marriage. How do you let somebody like her pass the gate? That's the question. How does a man let a woman like that pass through the gate? The privilege of being a wife, you know? Yeah, it's cool, man. We might still be here. You know, I mean, you know, see, some women don't understand that most women don't get asked to be married. Not even asked. Right. And then some women get a lot of guys asking them to marry them that they say no to. And they want to take credit for all the no's. But the only credit you get is to the man you say yes to. You don't get credit for the no's. You only get credit for the one you say yes to. And so, you know, I think men lose the fact that your superpower is who you let into the realm of marriage. I mean, even the newfangled guys, you know, there's a few women who ask a man to marry them and the man says yes and all that kind of stuff. That ain't never going to be the majority of men, you know, because I don't even know if those marriages are legitimate. You know, a woman come up to you and say, will you be my partner? And you sit down and say, yeah, I'll be your partner. Holy shit. You know, I don't know what kind of men those are. I really don't, you know, so, and that was my last question, you know, when you got married, were you looking for a partner or a wife? You know, because if you hear the language of today, women don't call men husbands anymore. They call them partners. And, you know, if you listen, right, if you listen across I'm not saying women, the women who frequent these airwaves, they're always talking about partners. And one of the problems I'm hearing, more and more men are starting to say my partner. And to me, just by saying a woman's your partner, it's already setting up the conditions for her to leave you. Because what she's telling you is that if you don't meet the conditions of the partnership, I'm a bounce. That's what I hear. I'm bouncing. And I'll let you guys speak. Right? Go ahead, no Red Planet.
I agree. Like with Joe Smith, marrying her, she has all her goods on display, doing everything with everybody on video. And I mean, I went and Googled her when the story hit, and I was like, she was in all these movies and stuff, and I'm like, you knew this chick's history. You knew what she was about. You knew what she was into. How could you feel like you could trust her, knowing her history and what she was into? That's what I was saying about the foreign bride thing. I would hope to get somebody that is traditional, more traditional minded, know what a man's role is versus a woman's role, instead of just partner, a husband and a wife, not a partner, and that's what's going on. We're trying to what do they say? Trying to be gender neutral. They're trying to say they're trying to make everything gender neutral in America, and it's an agenda going on. I'm not going to go deep into it, but it's an agenda going on.
You don't have to go deep. Of course, there's an agenda going on. Yeah, No, just look at this thing, Alex. But divorce has been increasing before the term partner became popular. Yeah, you can say that, but the more and more the word partner has become popular, it's been direct lockstep with divorce, no doubt about it. And I think I think if we go back, we probably would start hearing people use the term partner, maybe in the last 10 years or so. But you're correct. Well, no, that's not true. Some foreign women, it depends on what country the foreign women are from. You'll find, listen, any place where culture still reigns, you'll find some women who are tradition. The reason why American traditions are broken is because our culture is dead. It's dead, and that's why. Women used to believe in the cultural mores, and men did too. Men kind of respected women who were chaste. Men respected women who were had some virtue. Men did, and they would protect those women too, even if they didn't know them. So the breakup is across the board. And once culture died, it died for both men and women. And that's why we're in the place where we are now. There's no cultural mores left. Society is back almost to its base nature. Every man and every woman for themselves.
So, brother, I have a question. Can you tell me about when do you think that culture shift took place?
I think to me, it started in the 60s. It started in the 60s. It's a snowball. Here's where, I'm going to tell you, I believe that the culture started to shift when the pill was made popular.
And once we integrated?
Well, yeah, that has a part of it too. But when you say that, then who are you blaming it on? It wasn't just integration.
No, I'm not blaming it on. Well, we fought so hard to integrate, while others who were not as mass fought for us to stay separate. Because
I agree with you. Let me answer your question. Now I know where you're coming from. Integration had a little bit more to do with blacks abandoning other black people so they could integrate with white society. It was like a slingshot effect, I think. But if we take it away from black and white, both white and black people, we had culture that we all respected. White people had culture they respected. And we had culture in America that we respected. We had some social mores that cut across racial lines that we all respected. And so integration, I don't think, changed that. Now, we could have a difference of opinion. I think integration has hurt Black people from the standpoint that we couldn't wait to fly away from other Black folks, you know. But it also the fact that we was pinned together also in terms of a business relationship. I think it hampered some Black businesses because they didn't have to compete, right? So back when things were segregated, the Black businesses didn't have to compete because you couldn't go nowhere, right? You had to deal with Black.
But even in that regard, you know, most of us shopped at our stores that looked like people like us. So, and our dollar held a lot of weight. We took our dollar out of those stores. So whether we had the competition of other races or not, we still generated millions of dollars within our own community.
No, I hear you, but listen, Trey, I agree with you, but supporting just Black businesses wasn't enough because the quality of how far your dollar stretched and the quality of produce, it mattered. It mattered to people. So if I can get something cheaper, and you know, that's what they did. Oh, we don't have to play this one. We don't have to play that one. I was gonna. We don't have to play those other ones. I just want to go this way. So I don't disagree with you, Trey. This is a whole nother conversation. We should have another comeback on this one. You know, the sister down here said, "Blame the pill. Reducing unwanted children actually helps society." The pill's been around, right? How is our society doing right now, Alex? How is our society doing right now? Right, with the pill being since 1960, it didn't reduce pill. What the pill did, and you know, what the pill did was change the way women had their sexual habits, because now they can have sex. No, it's not. With all those fatherless children running around, you think that society's better? You ever take a look at the news in the inner cities? Are you kidding me? And the crime and all that kind of stuff with broken families? No, it's not. No, it's not. No, you should bring yourself up to in front of the congregation and explain a little bit more than in one-liners, because that's not what's going on. And besides, the pill was where women became unleashed and they could have sex indiscriminately like men. That's what happened. The crime is down in certain locations. You can't tell the people of Chicago that. Tell the women of Chicago that crime is down. You know, stop it.
In regards to crime, you know, you can't really look at that in actuality because they displacing Black people out of the communities that they were normally in the inner city all over the country. So they displaced a lot of them. So, but there's still going to be crime, and crime is going to appear to be down. But instead of having 500 Black people in a little 2-block radius, it's now only 200. It's not the same. They tore the projects down because every project was in prime real estate. You can look at your terrace or your 9th floor balcony and see the city skyline. You can't do that no more. They moving you out to where it floods, where where those houses and the tornadoes come through, and we don't have the resources to rebuild and fix things. I don't see Saprita getting out there filling those sandbags to keeping that water from coming into our front door. I just don't see it.
It depends on where you are with that. Hey, brother, I can't see your name with this banner here.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. What's going on, Grant? What's happening? What you got on the topic, man? Are you married?
No.
Are you planning on being married one of these days?
No.
Or that has passed? Is that has passed for you?
No, I don't think it's necessary for a thriving society. I think it's a rather outdated and outmoded sort of notion.
Tell us about it. Tell me about it.
So I don't think there's one size fits all, correct? I don't think one can sort of be an adversary to a notion, and even if you hold a different position. And I think it's easy to sort of place societal blames on some very narrow thing like marriage, correct? That doesn't seem to be the case, that any sort of so cultural problems we have, if we want to name it that, are directly related to the lack of marriage or marriage itself. I think there are other reasons why some segments of our society are not thriving.
Somebody got a mic open? I don't know if that.
Is that me? Somebody else has it.
I don't know. Everybody mute.
So I would just.
You got YouTube on?
No, I don't have any YouTube on.
Okay. I don't know what. Go ahead, finish.
Yeah. So I mean, so pointing out sort of just even something as basic as saying, whites and African Americans and whites in general had a particular we had some cultural mores, which can't be true. By the pure nature that African Americans were left out of basic rights, you can't have some little moral basis and still leave a percentage of your population out of just structural things, correct? So even if we can fake the notion that whites were walking around, or African Americans to some extent, were walking around with no problems and they were sort of levitating, it just isn't true. We have the smartest generation coming along. These kids are way more educated than any generation that's ever happened. That's including African Americans. This is the highest rates of employment for African Americans. I realize it's still high rates of unemployment, but kids are doing far better than any other generation. I think where we land often is that we see the troubles that are sort of we're being bombarded with them often, correct? When you sit on social media. And so these images sort of make you feel like there's these burgeoning problems that need to be sort of addressed. But when the reality is, I think the areas where we could concern ourselves, I think we should definitely focus on. That doesn't mean we're sitting in a world that's perfect, but I don't think the sky is falling by any means. And I don't necessarily think marriage does anything in either direction to sort of repair those problems.
So before you go on, let me ask you, can you give me an example of the good things that's go? I mean, you said some things. You made a statement. Are you denying the fact that our family structures are splintered all over the country? And this has nothing to do with race. I guess it's more in the Black community than any other community. But just trying to say what we see on social media might not necessarily be the reality of what's going on the street. That's part of what you're saying. I could agree with some of that.
Yeah.
So but to give me an example of what's better now than before. I agree with that. Our kids have access to more information quicker and earlier, and they can learn all the stuff they want to learn, but is their headspace in the right place? That's another thing, though. So, but go ahead, because I don't 100% disagree with what you're saying, because I know that. But go ahead, man. Go ahead, you can speak.
Yeah, so I think the best example is that kids are sort of able to sort of matriculate in ways in which they probably haven't in prior generations. Sure, we would want more kids into STEM programs. I don't think enough African American kids at an early stage are getting into those programs, but that's something I think we can fix. Those are things that are less in a generation. And so. I do think that there are the problems that persist, correct? So again, we don't have the same outcomes of our other peers and other social groups or other racial groups. But also, if you measure just by the outcomes, you are seeing improvements. And so I would sort of gather that if you were saying like, could we come out of this scenario, correct? Could we leave, come 10 years or 30 years down the road? Do we actually think African Americans would be in a better position? Yes. I actually think America would be in a better position. There's no reason to believe America is sort of a failing empire. Who's going to take over? It's not the Chinese. Unfortunately, I think people are vastly overestimating where the Chinese are. And then who's going to take over if the Chinese don't take over? You're just sort of we make up these boogeymen that don't exist around our empire ending, if we want to call it an empire. And then we make this false notion that all these problems are somehow makes this country not as great, or for whatever reason. We're producing at a high rate. We still have the highest GDP in the world. and we're still the place in which most people want to come. And so if you look at it from a macro standpoint as an American, there's very few things that aren't working well. Most things are working relatively well. If you look at it from a micro standpoint, specifically around African Americans, our outcomes are far better than probably most generations up to this point. Again, there are some problems, correct? I would be the first to say that a lot of our young African boys are just completely missing the mark, correct? You could take the whole city of Baltimore.
But why? Okay, so but hold on. But before you go on, you said a lot. You don't think that part of your opinion has to do with the class divide? Because, we have a class divide in America in general, and it's really exacerbated in the Black community. I don't go for the notion that the sky is falling so much that we have to hit the nuclear button. So I'm not arguing with you there. But part of our problem is a class divide. If you planted yourself, I don't know where you live at, but if you went back, I don't know when was the last time you've been down the streets of Baltimore, but if you go down to the worst neighborhoods in Baltimore, you'll feel like you're in a foreign land. I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking you'll feel like you're in a foreign land. We can't ignore that.
Well, I grew up in LA. I live in California. I grew up in South Central LA. So in essence, most people would say I don't sound like I would have been on a record with Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg, correct? So clearly I grew up in an environment, and I grew up in the 80s during the crack epidemic. I saw a lot of things living in what is truly the hood. Pretty much, if you watch Boys in the Hood, I can show you everywhere my grandmother was buried. So it is not.
I won't doubt that.
So my point being is even if I was to go to Baltimore now, it'd be different than what my lifestyle is today. It'd be vastly different, but it wouldn't be vastly different than what I had experienced during the early parts of my life. And so the reason I point that out is these kids potentially are going through some of the similar things I was going through as a child. And so what gives me hope is the fact that many of my peers, and myself included, we found our way out of it. And part of that is, having giving kids the tools to be able to navigate, number one, while you're in the midst of it, and then understanding that the environment that you're in, correct, probably won't map very well once you leave this very narrow specific area.
So let me stop you for a second. What's the general tools that kids need to take them from one place to another? That's parents. That is a structure to rely on. Who's going to take the kids from the inner city? Where's the conduit from them to get to for the opportunity you had or I had? I was born in Harlem. I lived in Harlem. I saw some of the worst conditions ever. The reason why I'm not there is because my family moved out of there. We had a structure to move us out of there to give me the opportunity from the family to do other things, expectations of me becoming an engineer and moving out. Who's giving those expectations to those inner city kids who are looting those stores? Who? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to say that the world is falling, but we can't look at what's great and then say, if we just keep doing great things, all these people down here at the bottom are going to follow us. That ain't true. Actually, unless people are reaching back, and I don't think much reach back.
It actually is true. As a matter of fact, you can. It's to some extent it's social pressure. I think you just got to look at what are the triggers for social pressure.
Let Trey first go after you finish, and then Trey, you can say something. Go ahead. Finish up, man. Go ahead, finish it. And stick around for a second. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for African Americans who are doing well, correct. If you are someone who acknowledges those individuals and you want to be within that social structure, you will do everything you can to be in that strata, correct? So if I see someone like Payne and Trey F, I think your last name, Trey F, I've seen you guys occasionally here on these shows, highly articulate, clearly you're doing well. And if I wanted to hang out with you, I probably need to learn how to golf, correct? And so I would make some structural changes in order to be within your ecosystem. And correct. And so I'm going to behaviorally make some adjustments because I see the value. And that's just pressure. And so you notice this in a lot of groups. If you just take Asians as a homogenized group, although I know they're far more fractured than that. But in order to be within those social stratas, you have to then perform. If you don't, you easily sort of ease out of it, correct? You're just pushed out of it. And so everything about it, you don't have to be all this pressure, but in order to be in that social structure, you've got to do X. The inverse would be if you think being in the hood is a cool thing, if you think the most gangster is the gangsterest thing you've ever gangstered, then you're going to then wrap your mind around those things. And this depends on which one of those things are prioritized within what we celebrate. The more you celebrate the thing theoretically that is not good for humans, let's say being a gangster, in this particular example, people are going to move towards that if that's what you're celebrating. If you're celebrating other concepts, people are going to move towards it. So you don't need someone to be directly engaging someone if there's a larger social.
So let me ask you this. Let me say this to you then, right? Our cultural baseline is the ratchet stuff. That's the thing you see on the airways all the time. It's not the doctors, the lawyers, the grants, and all that kind of stuff. The popular stuff is the sexy reds, the gangster rappers, the drill rappers, the guys on Rico's thing. They're everywhere. But before I go on, go ahead, Trey. You said you wanted to say something, man. But no, stick around, Greg, because I don't disagree with everything you're saying. But I'm just saying, let's talk about it. Go ahead.
He made a lot of great points. My focus when I speak a lot of times, it's not the 40-year-old, the 35-year-old. It's that 20-year-old, that 19, 30. It's the young man, the young women who's really looking for a direction to go through and navigate through that mess in their life at the moment. And, you're right. Someone should focus on being in the spaces that they want to be in to get to whatever level they're looking to get to. But if you young starting out and all you're hearing and seeing is that you're no good, you ain't gonna be jack. We don't need a man. We just want a man. They'll have your baby. Brother, you got to do A through Z to get to this level of just going from A to B. And, so as you look at it now, I think in a sense, the younger generation are smarter, but they're exposed to more adult stuff. They can.
Is that your dog, Trey?
Yeah. They good on showing you how to, roll. They can roll a blunt asymmetric, just like it was a cylinder, a scientist. They can definitely do the latest trendy dances, but unfortunately, a lot of our young boys and young children barely read on the 3rd grade level, and they in the 9th and 10th grade. Those numbers are greater today than it was in the 70s and 80s because you had a mission to go in school and learn. It was the only ball game in town. We had to play it. Most of us played it. And now I think going into the next millennium with a lot of our adults speaking, they want the bag, they want the money. We are essentially taking money right out of our children's mouths by buying the latest this and that. And the child has no opportunity. These children are, and I truly believe this with my heart, I don't believe that there's gangsters out there. There's a lot of learned bad behavior because those same guys have the ability to lead. Those same young women have the ability to lead, but if they only see uncle and auntie with their butts out and their breasts out, passing them around, telling them that they don't need to do this, they don't need to do that, when they grow up, it'll be 10 times worse. They're not going to lead the neighborhood. They're going to be in the way of your little son or daughter or nephew who has a dream of getting out. They stay. And the great thing about it is once you get to where you should be,
hey Trey, you gotta walk the dog or something, man.
Yeah, she wants something. She wants to go out. I think it's important to reach back at some point because none of us ever really make it. If you really want to make it, you're gonna have to sell something out. You're gonna give something away where you can't really connect to the African American community. It's easy to get up top and say, see, look at what they ain't doing it. Why come they can't do it? But when you down there and you looking up and you seeing somebody just not reaching up, you like, well, what about these children are like, what about me? They could be smarter, but To me, and this is just me, being in education, being in Chicago, a lot of the youth, they don't have the desire because everything they see adult when they go home to sleep is just all the adults have been sitting there doing nothing for 25 years. My thing is this: you have a son, daughter, niece, nephew, you want to see them do better, involve them in things outside of the neighborhood. Take them around, drive them around, let them do things, talk to them, show them how to read, show them how to do these things. Not talk. Black people, we talk like a mom. We the greatest talkers in ever. We usually fill the contest for bullshit talking. We gonna win every year, hands down. But as far as putting in that action, especially if you want to change your life, even as a man, 35, 40, invest in those children, invest in those younger family members who can't really see the future for them because they believe 35 is old today. 35 is the strongest man out there walking. He gonna take out a 25-year-old and a 55-year-old. So I'm trying to get them from 5 to 35, and the only way we can do it, we got to reach back and hold their hand. That's just the cards we dealt. If not, go on your island, live in your nice neighborhood, and hopefully Nug don't come to rob you.
That's true. That's true. Hey, so to be Red Planet, you got a little bit to say or what on this topic, or what you heard from Grant and Trey?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, we got you. Got you.
Yeah. My opinion on a lot of stuff is, regarding the Black community, what you're seeing now is like a issues from a lot of baby mamaism. It's a lot of, it's a story out of Memphis where it's like 3 guys that have 40 or 60 kids between them, and on multiple levels that creates poverty. It creates fatherless homes, no father to guide the son, no father to show a woman, a young girl, what to expect out of a man. And what's going on, it just seems like, I don't want to put it all on the women, but a lot of women are not picking well with.
Well, let's not put it on the women
some of
at
the
all.
guys they choose.
Let's not talk about the women in this thing, because men have a part. Because what you really said is the primary thing. These guys, these 3 guys with 40 or 50 kids, it's easy for me to say that they're the problem. You know what I'm saying? So whatever the women, we could talk about them. That's a whole nother show. But if a man's going around popping out 30 or 40 different women, he's a problem. He is the problem. But anyhow,
the only reason I disagree is because men really don't have any reproductive rights. We can't tell a woman when or not to have a kid or whatever. We don't really have a choice in that. We're held financially responsible, but we don't. But brother, we have no say in that. So if they go and do that, I mean, that's what we're seeing across the country. We're seeing a lot of irresponsible men, but a lot of really irresponsible women, and it's unfortunate. I'm not trying to put it all on the women, but no, come.
Hold on, Red Planet. Let me say this to you. I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, but you're wrong. Okay, because from one standpoint, you're right. I believe that women have the agency of their own. We got an echo of their own, their womb. That's theirs. But a guy who's walking around impregnating women, he's doing that on purpose. He's doing that on purpose. He has no discernment whatsoever. Because if you have 20 kids, the child support system ain't coming after you because they know you ain't got the money.
Hey, Red Planet, I think you have two. Yeah,
you have something on Red Planet.
You're the only one unmuted person that there's feedback from you. You have at least 2 screens open, just so you know.
What's up, James? Right now. Go ahead, man.
Hey, what's going on? It's the first time I've been over here on your side of the street with your show, and I've been wanting to check it up just a little bit.
Did you hear any of the show before what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, cool.
And I just want to piggyback on, you know, I know we say that people have been impressed by society as a whole, but from the time you have your children, you're teaching them about peer pressure from the first time they're going among other people. That's a life learned lesson. And it continues when you get it as an adult too, or a young teenager. And so I think we get to a stream because I done went to 7 events, family events, in the last year and a half. And I never seen nobody shaking their ass, or twerking, and halfway naked, or none of that stuff y'all talking about. Because these are family events. If I go to a Jamie Foxx party, I know exactly what I'm going to expect. If I go to a spring break at the beaches, hell, they're halfway naked at the beaches in the first place, so I know some more clothes getting ready to come off. I think we take the extremes and not the norm. And a lot of people like to speak in the extremes and not the norm. And I think we shouldn't do that. Because if we do that, then there's a part of society that you are speaking to probably only see that kind of stuff in videos, or probably only see it in wild places, and they're not really dealing with that. And I think we can teach them more the course of not how to get into that in the first place by other learned lessons. So that's what I wanted to bring to. And any man, wait a minute, the gentleman who was last speaking, I want to say something to you. Yeah, Red Flag. I want to say something to you. You do have a choice. See, this is the problem. Y'all say y'all don't have a choice, but you do have a choice. You have a choice before you lay down with that woman. Now, you're talking about the choices after you lay down with that woman. So I would ask you the same question. Would you like the government to come in and say you couldn't use your water hose no more till that baby get born? No more than you would tell that woman to have a baby or not have a baby. And so what I'm trying to tell you is, you don't want nobody controlling your body. Don't try to control somebody else's body, because this is where it gets off at. See, when I got married, I learned out when my lady, hold on just a minute, I'm going to get rid of this. I learned out when my lady was ovulating. And see, this is what most guys don't know. Women just don't have a baby every time you stick it in her. And so y'all must be out there messing with strange women. Y'all don't know nothing about her body. Because there's only certain days out of a month that she can have a baby. So I'm saying, if you out there raw dogging like bow-legged Willie in the neighborhood with nothing on and don't know anything about the lady, you get exactly what you're doing.
There's no argument, man. That's true. That's true. But hey, so anything else, JSP? We got Trey coming up, man. Go ahead, Trey.
Go ahead, Trey. I can let that Trey. Go ahead, Trey. Good to see you too. Good to see all y'all brothers on the panel speaking. And I hope the other Trey got that dog in line and wasn't no Klansman out there putting no cross on his yard, because I know he don't live around too many of us. So, take care of yourself. When you hear that dog barking, go to the door, brother. This is not that important. Go see what's going on.
She was thirsty. She talks. Okay. She was thirsty.
Okay. All right.
Trey, you got something? Go ahead, Trey. What you got on topic, man?
I just got here, Pain. I'm just listening.
Okay. All right. So
I see y'all pushing the old school dick discipline.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
Okay.
No, we're not really doing that. It's just a sidebar conversation. Hey, listen, though, but Grant did say something, J Speed. He says he doesn't think, and this is a conversation that's part of it, because I was talking about men in marriage here. He doesn't think that we need to have the marriage or family structure like that in the future, right? In order for us to be successful, I guess as a society, not necessarily it's just a black community, but as the whole society. Now, what do we think about that?
What do you have to think about?
A whole bunch of individuals going into the future. What do you think about that?
Look around and see what it produced. One of the things I know, the best way to weaken a people is to destroy the family. Now, as far as going doing vows in front of a preacher and all that, I mean, traditions, I can get away with some. I can get rid of some of them. But the family structure has to stay intact, because if it don't stay intact, you see what's happening right now. You see what happens when there's no roadmap or no blueprint as far as
Hold on,
what
J
is to
Speed.
come.
Hold on, J Speed, for 1 second. Am I mischaracterizing you, Grant, or not?
No, I mean, I would probably say it slightly differently, but I would love to still hear on at least your characterization. I'm okay with it's not slanderous enough for me to be upset about.
Go ahead, J Speed.
So what I would say is, in any organization, institution, you'll find out that there's structure, and it's not given discretion on certain issues, and that family is not one that I'm willing to separate from the human race, because I think that's the only way the human race has survived.
Yeah, and I would just say my only caveat would be, I don't think taking family out of it would be smart. Correct? I think every child wants to have a father and a mother, someone to care for them. We are social beings. There's clear benefits to that. So there's no way for us to leave a child in the middle of the woods and say good luck. And so and potentially we're doing that today for some children. But I would just give you an example, and I think Jay actually spoke to it, but I'll just sort of give an example of why I do think sometimes we lean on things like words like traditional, when it actually traditional means various things to many different people. And so because it's devoid of any sort of real meaning, it just often gets sort of thrown out there. And so everyone sort of nods along, but we're still all in disagreement about what traditional means. But let's take societies that exist today. We're not taking long gone societies. We're talking modern societies that don't marry at the same rates that we marry in our country. There are countries that thrive. They have low crime rates. They have better educational outcomes, and they have higher divorce rates than we do. And they don't seem to have all the other issues. But the one thing they have in place, correct, is that the father is still able to father their children, and the mother is still able to mother their children, and there isn't this sort of removing of these individuals, which I think is vastly different than what I think happens often within the African American community, where I think men aren't always able to, whether it be by their own behavior or by potentially by their prior mate's behavior. Those can be detrimental to a child. And
Grant, before you go on, I'm gonna cut you right here. I'm gonna let you go back. Are those societies you just mentioned, are they monolithic or like multicultural like ours? Because I think if they're monolithic, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, so they're more likely to be homogeneous, but let's just say African Americans are homogeneous to some extent. We have
one more question. Go along with that. Is it one race you're speaking of in each country you're talking about? Because I don't know about that big word.
Yeah, so yeah. So there's three countries that we would tend to group them as called Scandinavian countries, which I think is a great example. And so they're Nordic countries, correct? Highly homogenous, but again, African Americans for the most part are homogenous. And let's remember, let's remove the notion of blackness. We know that groups that may appear to be African Americans that aren't African American. Let's take Jamaicans or Nigerian Americans. Their outcomes tend to be better, correct? And there's various reasons why those outcomes are different. Nigerians are more likely to get higher education, postgraduate degrees, and actually on average earn more than even white counterparts, correct? And so it isn't, if you just narrowly leave it towards African Americans, we're highly homogenous. And so to segment to say that because Nordic countries are homogenous, that you couldn't repeat it with an homogenous group here can't be true, because Nigerians are homogenous, correct, to some extent. And their outcomes are reflective of their homogeneous sort of cultural sort of experience. And so you could map that onto African Americans potentially and potentially have similar outcomes.
Okay, so there is a question to that. Let's take finance. If I take the same people from here, African American you're speaking of, and put them in the same finance bracket in a certain bracket, will the outcome be that much different?
Theoretically, it shouldn't be correct. I think there's clearly structural issues that African Americans are experiencing. So you have to tease out some of those things and not leave African Americans where they are. And there's clear structural problems. And so I'll use one caveat. I'll use another example to make it clear that there are things that groups do that are bad. Americans are highly patriotic and suspicious nonsensically, and it doesn't make any sense, correct? And so we see the vast majority of aliens, and there's a reason for it. Americans are at the edge of thought, and so we tend to see things that aren't there, and the things we don't see sometimes turn to great inventions. And so yes, there are pieces of a society that can be both good and bad, and I do think African Americans to some extent have those features. We tend to think down about ourselves. We tend to think being educated is more closely associated with whiteness versus blackness, correct, to some extent. Those what I would call paper cuts, although small, over time can bleed you to death. And generally speaking, I do think there are features in the African American community that are bleeding us to death to some extent that aren't going to show up as success if we don't fix those things. But generally speaking, I do think you could have similar success if you can just fix some of these minor problems.
Okay.
Hey,
If nobody else has a question, I do have one more question.
All right,
I'll go after you, OG. I got a few questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, OG. I appreciate you. So, Grant, a couple things. One, definitely appreciate the perspective. It's my first time interacting with you, and I've appreciated your commentary, throughout the evening here. So, just a couple of things. So, within those Scandinavian countries that are relatively, homogenous, would you? So actually, let me put it like this. I think that there are portions of that are replicable, but for the most part, due to the fact that African Americans don't have the political access, they don't have the access to the capital, they don't, and then on top of that, within those Scandinavian, countries, they have higher taxes, they've got, free education, they've got the paid for healthcare. Like there's just some differences there that don't translate well to here, where, and I think you were touching on this earlier, where the patriotism and the individualism within America would instantly kneecap those things and would run counter to those Scandinavian beliefs, right?
That's correct.
So I guess the question that I would have for you, kind of presenting those things, is how would what success in those homogenous areas, how could that be repeatable within Black America without some of those same benefits that they enjoy in those areas? Because I do believe that there are ways to kind of extricate the more beneficial aspects of those type of communities. But I guess from that perspective, well, from your perspective, what are some of the things that we can easily replicate here in the States from those areas?
Yeah, so I think one of the misconceptions about taxation or expenditures, correct, is we make the assumption that although you're taking 50% out of Scandinavian countries, you don't have similar issues happening in America. But I'll use this way of sort of hoping to sort of equalize the conversation. One being you get taxed 30% here in the States and you get about 50% there. But on top of that, our healthcare costs us, if you have a family of one, correct, that's about $300 out of your check. If you have 2, 3, or 4 or 5, that's $500, $700, $800, upwards of $1,000, maybe $1,200 if you get to a family of 4, correct? Plus, depending on how much your employer is willing to supplement, correct, subsidize your healthcare. But if you add those two things up, we just so happen not to pay our healthcare costs directly to our government, who then get a flat cost. We actually pay that directly to the healthcare industry. But in essence, the expenditure is the same. And so you're not necessarily changing the structure, you're just changing the distribution. But once you look at it in that standpoint, correct, the expenditure is the same. You're still putting out over 50% of what you're bringing home gross, correct? But let's just say there are groups that have very limited political power. Let's say Japanese Americans in California have very limited power in the States, and Vietnamese as well have very limited power in the state of California for a very long time. And pretty much to this day, they still have very limited power. And so you can look at these communities and say, how are they thriving with limited access to the sort of political power that we know that we don't have here in America. Potentially, there are ways to sort of rethink about how we interact with each other. We tend to chase sort of whiteness in a way that is a derangement. And so we assume that every white behavior, and I'm only saying that because I don't have a very better term for it, but not every structural thing that what we consider white people do is actually beneficial to humans. Matter of fact, many of the things that what we would perceive as whiteness or sort of white behavior or white structure is actually damaging to about 80% of whites anyway. The state of West Virginia is over 95% white, and it's one of the poorest states in the union, correct? If whiteness was the mere notion, if whiteness was merely the production of wealth, why is West Virginia poor? Well, we know the reason why is because the system sucks out capital from everyone and puts it at the top. You only have to be a few white people, correct, to succeed, and every other white person is just poor. In essence, African Americans have really stuck to that same template. We have a high number of people, a low number of people at the top who we praise, the Oprahs, the Jay-Z's, and we make the assumption that being an entrepreneur with no sense of what that means, or CEO of a fledgling company is a title that we should have. But when I head into certain communities, I notice that they have a very more equal distribution of income. You have doctors, you have lawyers, and they are attempting to have income about $200,000 for each person. And they're not trying to have one person at the top and everyone else at the bottom, and then everyone praises the person at the top and say that's their blackness or that's their whiteness. I do think that is a way for us to get away from those ideas. And I know it may sound insane, but what I have to say is, why are Nigerians don't have same disparities, and why don't Asian Americans generally don't have those disparities, and why do other groups who come here don't have those disparities?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
If you like.
I want. Yeah, go ahead and answer, because I want to say something about that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, so to that point, if someone is coming here from Nigeria, Jamaica, Vietnam, whatever, there's typically a network that allows a person to come here, either a network or they've got some bread. Like we're not getting the mediocre Vietnamese people here over in America. You're getting the cream of the crop, or you're getting the folks that are going to come in, work at Randy's or Holy Moly Donut Shop until they can have the resources to be able to branch out and get their own. So there's usually a community in place where there is access to capital and resources that allows them to kind of come in with $8 in their pocket and then end up where, they're a doctor or their kids are doctors and all of that. So the structure is a lot different in that way, where there's already these ready-made resources and access to resources that help propel them to those levels, where Black Americans historically have been locked out of those things. Not saying that it's a end all be all where Black Americans don't get to those levels or don't experience that success, but we've traditionally been locked out where they've already been past blazed for those other folks.
Yeah,
I would like to pick it back on. Can I pick it back on?
Go for it. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Jones, you almost gave yourself away when you said Randy's Donut, so I know you're close to me. Anyway, because Randy's is known from California, but I don't know, they might be somewhere else. But I know you're close to me. I would like to say this, sir. One thing I found out in my lifetime: confidence weighs a lot on a human being, how they live and how they think. When you have a certain amount of us, and I'm not going to get into the excuses, I'm going to get into the reasons. When you have a certain amount of us who don't have confidence in the country they are living in, it makes them feel like they have to struggle just to be human beings every day. And there's a mass amount of our population who believes that. And not only do they believe that, there's trace evidence that that some of that might be true. You got scholars from Harvard and Princeton right now debating if black people are citizens of this country, regardless of how we all fought in every war that they ever had. And they say the 14 really don't cover us being citizens. So that's a political thing. That is a legal thing, a legal argument. But you got to understand, and stuff like that trickles down when most people who's been in the military don't even know that that was a signed document for black people to even be in the military. And it could be taken away with a stroke of a pen. We are the only people who falls under that. No other citizens of this country falls under that. It was a line item that a president signed to get us in the military. And in any given time, it could be taken away. I'm not saying it's going to be taken away, but I'm just showing you where the confidence and people who that you want to be patrons, who see things not like me and you might see it, but just in general on struggles of survival every day. Now, you had millionaires way back in Mount Walker. You have towns that were very successful. It's not the people, I believe, that sustain from education. There's a certain type of education they don't want, because they figure that is what got them into this trouble in the first place. So it's trying to, like, every day of your life, you're trying to figure out where you fit. And most of them people that come here, they know where they fit at, and they have a biblical cord back to their country, even if it don't work out here. And don't say they don't get supreme thing, because I've been into that business. If you come from a war-torn country, there's benefits out to you that we as citizens don't get.
Hey, OG, real quick, I want to.
Before you go, though, I'd like to say, I like all the references. I think those professors who are coming up with that, we're not real citizens. I just think they needed something to do, so they picked on that, and they're doing a research paper. As far as the 14th Amendment and all the kind of stuff that we're a line item, I would say 90% of the black people are living oblivious to that whole thing. Nobody, we come up with all kinds of reasons why we are where we are. And half of those things are just like imaginary, we got issues, and our issues could be overcome, but some of it by what you said, Grant, by moving forward, and some of it is, some of it is just stuff that gives us reasons to have excuses for not succeeding. That's
Mr. Payne, how do you cure a mental patient?
No, wait a minute.
I'm just asking you a question. How do you cure a mental patient?
Lobotomies.
Say that again.
Damn.
See?
Cut the whole brain out. There you go.
This is wait a minute. There's not too much different from There's not too much different from that word he just used than worthless eaters. Believe it or not. There's not too much different in what he just said and when I say worthless eaters. And when you start to understand that, Mr. Payne, these things are not invisible. Me and Mandrell talk about this a lot. The veto power.
I hear you.
But you said, wait a minute. I'm just saying, when you put all the factors together, you got people who go do great in survival mode. I would just like to see black people out of survival mode and see what we are able to accomplish in survival mode. What could we do outside of that?
Yeah, okay, so here's my thing to you and my retort to that. There's too many people who profit off of us. Let me just say this. It's just too many people who profit off us being in survival mode, so they try to keep us there. That's what I'm thinking. So, I just think we have issues, but I think our issues need to be corrected by not trying to blame all the shit on the past and the fact that we've been victims. I just think that keeps us in place. Of course, people. I mean, listen. Say what?
Did you hear that from me? Yes, I say, did you hear that from me, though?
No. What I'm saying is,
I think he brought in all kinds of solutions and problems that we might have problematics. I think Mr. Jones brought in, and what I did, I just turned the blade over and brought it to a full circle. I don't live in the past. I was never a slave, but I know the 30 Ford that was built in 1930 T model has a direct effect on the Bugatti today. I'm not gonna give up that.
Hey, well, listen, we could agree to disagree on where we got to go, but the real answer is that we got to move. Like we're all men here, right? So this whole show started about what men need to do to move forward in terms of, especially I was talking about if you wanted to be married, but this is good enough, this conversation, because we all have a role to play. And all I'm hearing, not all I'm hearing from you or anybody else, I'm just saying that there's different paths to solution. So when Grant came up here and said what he said, I had some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. And the way I think, I think that one of our biggest issues is in the Black community, we have a class divide. And a lot of people try to ignore that, and I can't ignore it. There's people who've gotten themselves out of the mud at some point where it was easier to get yourself out of the mud. And so now with the way things are, I'm not so sure it's that easy when so many kids and so many younger people think they're victims. That's all I'm saying. So they can't see themselves. Well, like when people tell me about institutional racism, well, if there's, I agree there's an institutional racism, but it leaks like a sieve. You know why? Because we have so many successful Black people walking around. So, what's the solution? I see you shaking your head, Grant. I don't know what you said, but
no, I don't know how to have this argument. I really don't even know how to have this.
I'm not saying I'm not blaming.
No. It's not an argument in a bad argument. I mean, like Denzel Washington debate. That's what I'm talking about. Not in an argument. I don't know how to have this discussion when one hand we want to say that there's problems in our community, and then in the other hand we won't look at the whole circle, what might be the problem, and look at everything. I'm just saying, look at everything. See, I only fulfill the glass that was a little empty. The two brothers was very eloquent in the way they presented what could be seen to be the problems in our community, Jones and Grant. And I just filled the glass up with the rest of it. That's all I did.
It's debatable that Jones said anything worthwhile, but just
this is bald head on bald head. So I mean, I don't get into them fights.
I'm not. I heard what you're saying. It's unfortunate that I came after what you said because I'm not focusing on you. What you said. I think that you're right about the issues we have in the whole, but there's some issues that we bring up that we can't leave behind. And what I'm saying is sometimes when you have to move forward, you can say, this is what happened to us, but our solution set don't have to include always reminding people what happened to us. It just doesn't. That's what I'm saying. And we know it's there, but sometimes once we start mentioning that, we can't even move forward because we get stuck on that shit. Oh, they did this, Jim Crow, blah, 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 and we get stuck on the past.
Yeah, Arcane, the only pushback I would have for you on that is we can't, to your point, it's easy to get caught up in this perpetual victim cycle, right? It's real easy to do that. But I would really and strongly implore us to not forget the atrocities that have happened to us. Because as soon as you begin to forget your past, you are going to repeat it. And we're already seeing, in this post-racial era where things are coming back that we thought were gone. So we have to be very careful. To your point, there is a balance. But
like what? What's come back that was gone?
Syphilis, tuberculosis, measles, infectious diseases.
That stuff never went away, though.
Yeah, that's just people who don't believe in the vaccination.
I got a shot for all that stuff when I joined the military in 2004. Where did it go? It never left.
Yeah, it never went away.
It largely left here.
I would make one point for you, East. Like I would just say, like I hear where you're going, and I'll just use an example from California, who abolished affirmative action in our colleges and universities. First, a liberal state, correct? Yes. All of us have purple hair here, by the way. The point is, the argument that was made by African Americans, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but the argument was, well, if you don't have these in place, African Americans won't be in universities. What ended up actually happening is
Actually, affirmative action actually works more for whites than it does for African Americans.
Thank you.
Matter of fact,
thank you.
African Americans actually are above their population percentage. Then when whites are just completely well below their percentage, correct? If you would have this equal distribution of outcomes, correct? And why did that happen? Because affirmative action was really looking at a whole host of things. And by the way, white people could fulfill those things. They were, in different groups or whatever. And so all these other factors were able to do something. But the fear mongering that happened then leaves African Americans with saying, well, we need this to get into college. We need this to get in college. But the one thing that African Americans forget to say is that all the years that African Americans were not allowed into Harvard, the HBCUs were the place where you would go if you were Black and smart. And so the concentration of brain power led to those universities putting out great innovations. Now our greatest minds go to Harvard, UC Berkeley, correct, UCLA. In essence, what changed is that it took away the power of African Americans from HBCUs and put the brightest students in what we would now say sort of predominantly white universities. I think we need to understand, yes, these things happened, but then how do you fix them going forward? Because and there's a problem with saying that every problem has to be solved through some sort of remediation plan that requires some government intervention. What becomes problematic is the solution for us then was we had the smartest people concentrated in a very small number of universities. And that in and of itself was producing a whole hell of a lot of benefit for African Americans. And now it doesn't. And even like a university like UCLA, which has the highest amount of rich Black people, students, correct? Their kids are there who go to UCLA. The reason is there's a bunch of rich Black people in LA for obvious reasons. It's in Hollywood, it's music, correct? And so what we know is that the biggest divide for why outcomes happen, specifically for African American in this particular setting, is African Americans are in UCLA because of social economics. The families who have money are able to pay for their kids to get better education. And the parents who don't have the education or have access don't get it, correct? They're less likely to go to a school that's going to benefit them to being better students. And I think we have to start thinking better about what are the things that happened to us in the past and how do you fix those problems going forward? Because ultimately, if we're always a slave to someone coming along and holding our hands, we'll always just be slaves, correct? I mean, that in essence, we'll just always being dragged along for the journey.
I agree. Banjo, you have anything?
I agree with you 100%. This is why I say you can't absolutely not pay attention to a sore on your arm. It might come to be a cancer if you don't watch out. And so this is why I speak the way I speak. And I not only speak, but in the end of the day, I got solutions and I work with people where the solution works for them.
Arpain, 10 seconds for me to quickly add some context. So Grant, you brought up excellent points. The thing that the only thing I would add there is the reason that the PWIs became more attractive than the HBCUs not only necessarily came down to access and prestige and networks, but it also came down to funding. When you begin to look at these HBCUs, which in a lot of cases are land grant universities, they are largely underfunded compared to the white institutions. Like I believe the number that I saw for Jackson State, the underfunding that they've had for the last 40 years accounts for $250 million. And when you actually show up at a lot of these HBCUs, and I'm going to use a lot, there's rats and roaches and mold in the dorms and less than adequate facilities. As a matter of fact, I believe the Deion Sanders guy, whoever that guy is, mentioned that on his way out of Jackson State. So we again, this is kind of the balance here, right? Like we can't, we can say, hey, we's free now, we can make it happen. But until there's a more equal playing field, when Jackson State and Mississippi Valley State get the same level of funding, or actually that funding they're supposed to get relative to their white peers, we're going to continue to see this issue.
I'm just stuck on the fact that he just said the Deion Sanders guy, as if he didn't know who Deion. He said whoever he is. Doesn't know, you don't. Wait, you're telling me
you're from California, Mandrell. Damn.
That's no excuse. You don't know who Prime Time is?
I was being funny. I was being funny.
I was being funny. Like, wait, what?
I would just.
So, Mandrell, you got anything on this topic, man? Yeah.
Well, he's got a point with the HBCUs. They're shit, to be honest. Some of them are. Most of them. The vast majority are. The vast majority are absolute shit. Now,
misfunded.
Let me finish. They are misfunded. That's part of the problem. And I'm not going to hear a debate on this. It doesn't matter. The facilities are shit. Period. Doesn't matter how it got there. They are shit. Okay. Now, Alabama State and Alabama A&M, the state of Alabama got caught actually withholding endowment funds from Alabama State and Alabama A&M. They got caught red-handed, hand in the cookie jar. So what the state did was like, okay. Hey, listen, tell you what, let's not make the big thing out of this. Let's not make it public. We'll give you the money. Now I can't give it all to you at once because they went back and found out how long they had been doing this, and the state really didn't have the money. Like that, the state would have been bankrupt for the next 12 years straight. Like $0 for the next 12 years straight of their whole budget. That's how much money they kept away from these HBCUs, so they had to pay it back in increments. Since then, you see Alabama State's campus today, brand new stadiums, brand new whole building, huge building for forensic science. They actually took that money and did what they're supposed to do with it. Now look at it. It's fantastic. Alabama A&M, this is the school I went to. It's the same. In fact, it got worse. Like, what you do with the money? Where's the money? What did you do with it? They built a gym, and that's about it. So it's like, a lot of these schools
know that when they accepted you should have known that was not the right school.
Now, listen, my sister went to Alabama State, the same as my parents did, and I didn't want to go. No, everybody goes there. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm gonna get out of town, go to college. But yeah, as far as I agree that we shouldn't dwell on things and let that be the reason why we don't excel. But I think we have to watch that argument because a lot of that it gets dangerous because people are saying, I've heard discussions where people are saying we should not talk about it at all. I'm just like, yeah, no, that's not going to fly. That's American history. It's Black history. It's American history. America did it.
Let me just say this real quick. When we jump to saying that because we want to move on from the slave talk, that we want to forget it, is also a stretch. Because that's not a stretch. True.
I've had that discussion.
We can't just go there and say we're going to forget our history because we don't want to keep reminding everything we try to do going forward. But remember, Master used to beat the hell out of us, so we got to keep saying that shit before. It's like if I achieve something, everybody got to say, well, he's a descendant of a slave, so now he's a champion of the world. I mean, sometimes we can move forward without forgetting the past. I mean, come on, it's written in all kinds of books. It's not going to.
How are you going to gain the sympathy of the white folk that you've been trying to get money from for years? If you don't perpetuate the slave.
There you go. There you go.
You have to constantly remind them that their ancestors treated us like shit.
That's a fair point.
He's being facetious.
It's a fair point, though. At the same time,
but wealth has been passed on.
I'm saying to you that's what Black people think.
Yes,
Black people think that way. That the only way that I can get white people to feel for me is I have to remind you that your great granddaddy had made my great granddaddy a slave. I have to keep reminding you of that.
But Trey, how many times have you petitioned this government for sending money to Israel that we had nothing to do with that fucking war?
Oh, listen.
I'm just asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. That your hard-earned money goes to.
How many times have you bought rice in China?
Say what?
How many times have you bought rice in China?
How many times I bought rice in China? I use brown rice.
That's
California. Brown rice, California. Brown rice, California. I've been a vegetarian. That's why I look. We look almost the same age because I use. It is a question. Because we make all kinds of argument why we shouldn't talk about certain things because, well, you know, it might offend someone. It might do this. It might make them feel guilty. It's going to make you feel like a victim. Come on.
Well, maybe we should start offending some people. Maybe that's where our community has gone wrong. Maybe the days of us not trying to offend people need to be done. Maybe we need to start stepping on some.
I agree.
Stepping on some toes. Maybe we need to.
I
start
agree with that
100%. We need to
but I say all across the board. I say all across the board.
You know what you got a bigger problem? You got a bigger problem is that if you want to fight, because this is what it's going to take. It's going to take a fight. And I don't know if that fight is physical. I don't know if that fight is financial. I don't know if that fight is mental. It might be a combination of all three. But the problem is that you're not raising boys to fight that fight regardless. You're raising them to wear purses, long dresses, heels, makeup, nails. They're not prepared to get into this fight. Whether it be physical, let me finish, because I didn't interrupt y'all. Whether it be physical, financial, or mental, they're not prepared for this. You think that if Grant sat down, he had 35 to 45 young guys, and he's trying to explain to them how we're going to put this into action, that they would even pick up half the shit he just said? No. We're not even raising competent young black men. All you have to do is pay attention to social media and listen to them answer simple 5th grade questions. These motherfuckers can't even name countries. We are not preparing them to be able to do what you guys think we should be doing, to reclaim what we need to reclaim. It ain't happening. The generation that's coming up, this Zoomers and what will eventually be the Alpha generation are ill prepared for what's coming for them. However, the Asian community, white community, Hispanic community, they're preparing theirs. I just watched a video of I want to say it was either Japan or China. They got these kids in here breaking down guns and learning nomenclature. They breaking down the gun in class. They had to be 7 or 8 years old. They're taking guns apart. Our kids, 7 or 8 years old, are twerking on tables. So what do we actually
win battles, Trey? You got to remember that. Twerking wins battles.
Snatching persons.
And not only wait a minute,
Napoleon conquered Europe through twerking.
Trey,
so you need to get that right.
Trey, if you think I'm gonna let you do the moonwalk on a table with what you just said, I'm gonna have one reply to that. Napoleon thought the same thing when he went to where?
Waterloo?
Russia.
Got caught in snow.
Haiti. Napoleon thought the same thing when he went to Haiti.
Come on, man.
He thought the same thing when he went to Haiti. He thought the same thing when he went to Haiti.
The next thing he's going to say is,
so what I'm trying to say is,
from history are doomed to repeat. That's what
I didn't interrupt you. I let you talk once you brought it to my attention. Okay, so let's move on. So what I'm saying to say that is, if you really understand warfare, if you really understand the history of warfare, the numbers you looking for has never been the numbers. It's always been a small number of people who start the revolution. And everybody's just follows like what? Ants. When you understand warfare, real warfare, not fly-by bomb dropping, not none of that. When you really understand warfare, because when all that is over, you got to go down there and put your boots on the ground. That's when the war really starts.
You know, y'all gonna look behind y'all and y'all gonna see a bunch of men with purses and sandals on.
Maybe in your neighborhood,
that's you. I don't see that.
You living in the wrong neighborhood, bro.
Those are gonna be. What are you talking about? I am the last person that was probably in the military out of all of us, and I'm telling you, I was leaving just as they were repealing "Don't Ask, Don't Tell." We had military guys in there dressing like penises for Halloween. Listen, you guys don't understand because a lot of you are just out of touch. You're out of touch with what's going on.
Why you think we out of touch? Because we don't say the same thing you say.
No,
this is where the real disagreement starts. You think you're saying something that we don't know.
You're actually out of touch because of what you are saying. You don't hear what I
hear. You don't. No general gets in front of the other general and tell him his strategy. So a lot of things you won't hear from my mouth. Not on these panels.
You're not a general, and nobody's following.
Okay, so that's you speaking. This is what I'm saying, Trey. This is what I'm
following
for a second.
Hey, this is what you're saying, Trey. Trey.
There's
You
nobody
don't know my
behind
personal. Trey, you don't know my personal life.
I don't care about your personal life. I know you don't.
And I don't care about yours neither.
I'm not asking you to.
Okay, then. So why are you bringing up mine?
I'm not bringing it up. I'm saying that nobody's going to follow you.
No, nobody's following your ass because you got your ass, your head so stuck in a gay person's ass, you can't see clear where their real men's at. Because that's all you talking about. Men's with an ass. And everybody knows I come from the South, and that's the way I see it. Look. Again, you know exactly what I'm saying. And
I know people who come from the South that actually speak. Men's, okay, bro.
And that might not be. It might not be you lost your hair. That might be thigh burns. That might be thigh burns. Oh, well, you talking to me, Mr. Pan?
The only people who use men's are gay men.
For a second, man. Just hold on for a second. I don't want to get this.
And you saying that while you rubbing on your boyfriend's leg?
This ain't Fight Club, man. This ain't Fight Club.
Okay.
Let's stop.
You saying that while you rubbing on your boyfriend's leg?
I don't beat up on
men. Stop.
Don't tell me to stop. He's the one that's doing this shit.
I'm saying it to both of you guys, man. Just
no, you're not.
For a second, man.
No, you're not.
Because, listen. I like the argument as much as next guy, but let's move it forward. All right, both of you guys have said what y'all wanted to say. Y'all don't like it. That's cool. Let's just move forward. Listen. I don't know. We ain't gonna stay here much longer. I want to go through final thoughts. I want to go through final thoughts. We've been here a lot, So whoever wants to, Trey, let's start with you, Trey Ferg. Let's start with you. Let's go around. I mean, on the topic of men and our responsibility and families. If you want to do that, let's do that. Take it easy, man. And go ahead, Trey. Trey Ferg. Whatever you want. Go ahead.
So you're saying speak on the topic of men and
anything you want, man. Final thoughts. Anything you got on your
I think as men, we get to an age anyway where we're going to understand our responsibilities to ourselves, and we should see those same responsibilities to our family and then our community. I just think that there is a really, really unique dynamic right now between our younger warrior class, that young adult, and our older people, I say older, but 50s, 60s, like that. There's a really big disconnect because we always seem to say what they should be doing or whatever, but a lot of those young people just don't know how to do it because the voices that they're hearing are not our voices. They're hearing those that are speaking the loudest, those entertainers, the ones that have those platforms. They're the ones that their young people are hearing. Now, I don't know if any of you, I know some guys here have been to the military, and you can always hear the difference in how guys who've been to the military, who got to see a little different than outside the States, at a young age than the guys who never been to the military. It's a big conversation difference. I just think that now is the greatest time for men to really take advantage of what is here today. This is the greatest time to focus on self. Get away from your mama, your alcoholic uncle, your auntie that show you her breast all the time. Get away from the guys that always want to shove a drink or blunt in your face. Get away from those guys. Go be a man on your own. Nobody can show you how to be a man unless you step away from what you used to. It's just unfortunate that we are here. I hope to see us change in my lifetime. I think it's going to take work from all of us. We need our women just like they need us, because as long as we continue to, and we can all have different opinions, but sometimes we just got to show up just because of the cause. There is no right or wrong answer. There is no one answer to this problem. A lot of us didn't create the problem. We were just living, born in it, raised in it, eating it. And as far as the women, they have to do their part.
All right, let me ask you two questions, Trey, before you go, and then we'll move around. One, do you think men are the gatekeepers of marriage?
Yes, men are the gatekeepers of marriage.
Okay, that's one. The other one is, did you want a partner or a wife?
I wanted a wife. I had a lot of partners in dating. I had a lot of partners in dating, but I knew I wasn't going to lay any foundations until I had a wife. And once I got a wife, then I was able to release a lot of the, I don't know, the emotional stress of just trying to do it all. I was able to release that because once I realized I had a wife, I was into my marriage. You know, she presented herself to be that person, and she vocalized it and showed me, because I've always been on what people do. And she showed me a lot of things that were different from what I was used to. And once I was able to see that, it allowed me to expand even greater. My life has not been better than I am today, ever. I don't care. I have everything a lot of people wish they had, you know, but I understand my mission is greater than me. That's why I'm always fight for the light skin, big nose, the dark skin, big nose, the fat feet.
They better joke cut out before we got to it, but
I'm always do that. And, you know, we all are here, regardless of how we feel. Black power all day. Teach your young, teach your daughters, teach your sons, your nieces and nephews. Don't smoke and drink in front of them. Take a bath every day. Everybody relax. It's Monday. Thank you, Brother Payne. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for coming up. Okay, Grant, man, what you got?
Yeah, I appreciate a chance to come up on the panel. It's always good to hear different voices and opinions. In relation to your questions about a wife or partner, I would just say I think wife is just a noun, correct? It's a title. Partner is an action verb, correct? You have to take some action and two people do something. And I'm not saying you can't pick and decide, but I'm just saying it's important to understand that each individual should have some agency in their life. And it's important that both individuals are coming in having a sense of who they are, so they can complement each other. I would never expect someone not to be their whole self, because I expect myself to be my whole self. So I think that makes anything worth being a part of when two people are conscious and aware of exactly what their expectations are. And I do think that's part of the issue here. Potentially, when people are making sort of decisions, are they able or capable adults? And I think often they may not be, correct? I remember when I was 19 and 20, I don't think I was, so finely calibrated as I am today. And I still have quite a bit of work to do. And so I do think the hard work of not just seeing your wife or your girlfriend as someone who's there for your pleasure. I do think it takes a worthwhile look at oneself to see what value you're bringing, not only to yourself, but the persons who are in your ecosystem. And so one of the recommendations I often tell my nephews is what you are is going to be who is around you. And so it's very unlikely that if you're doing well, that the people you're around are not going to be doing well. And so when you do something like Joe Smith, who decides that, yes, I'm in a profession, I make money, I go and get someone who's outside of my ecosystem, those are the outcomes you have to live with. And I think even hearing anyone trying to sort of say he's a victim in this, well, it's a decision, correct? These are things that we, as if men are somehow these elevated beings, to whatever that means, to make a decision with someone who clearly is outside of your ecosystem to some extent, or at least doesn't share, at least on the surface, some levels of values. And again, I'm not going to pick the values for anyone, but based on his reaction, he had a particular value that he held, and yet he still decided to go to do something that's the antithesis of that. Instead of holding her, whatever, accountable, which I hear a lot of people say, I think this is a great time for people to reflect on who are you choosing as a partner or a wife? What are you doing to bring in the people who are around you at any given moment? I can tell you my friends are I never have to worry about a fight or arguments or things like that. I don't get into fisticuffs. I don't go out with people who want to throw beer bottles. Those aren't people who are around me. And yet I have acquaintances who are like every weekend they're in a fist fight. I'm just wondering, well, who are you running with at the age of 40, 40 plus, correct?
Right.
So again, I think part of it, the onus isn't on everyone else to sort of acquiesce to your wishes.
It is to fundamentally create a space by which people gravitate to you because of what you are putting off. And if the people around you aren't who you don't like yourself, because those are the people who are somehow think that you are in agreement with them. And so I would say the work for any relationship, marriage, girlfriends, friendships, etc., coworkers, anything. Part of it is whether or not you are, as an individual, are capable of taking ownership of your own behaviors and ownership of the people you're going to be around. And I think that is the thing that I think many young kids need to hear, because often the position is, well, I was along for the ride. I was with this particular crowd. You still pick that crowd, unfortunately. Right. I'm not saying we don't have room for redemption, but eventually redemption does wear off. When you're in your mid 40s and you're still behaving as if you're in your 19s.
Hey man, listen. Okay, go ahead.
And that's pretty much it.
Hey, listen. The only thing I would say against you, wife is an action word, especially if you're biblical. It's an action all the way through. So from that standpoint, it's a verb. But we can lend that there. But hey, Jay, Speed, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm gonna come
on down. Last words, brother.
Yeah.
Final thought.
Last words. Let me stay to the topic, and let me sound as eloquent as I can. Okay.
There you go, bro.
I've been to both sides of the street. I've been in the military school for 8 years, and I was in the Nation of Islam for almost close to 40 years, and I'm still a surviving member of it. So I know both worlds. I've seen where people was taken from drug addicts to pimps to streetwalkers to people who just didn't give a damn about themselves because they never had confidence in themselves. And I seen where the techniques that was used was to call out the problem, but the individual had to make choices, pull itself up by its bootstrap. But that was done with love, not hate. And so there's a different message in it when you do it with love. So when I get people who can't see an inkling of that might be a problem in our community, as people having confidence, just knowing self. Because I know anytime I jumped in the ring, if I feel like my opponent was greater than me, I wasn't going to have a good match out of the 20-something years I boxed. So what I'm saying is confidence has played a vast importance in my life. And that's what I do. What I get on these panels and talk about is totally different from the 18 people in my house right now who was considered as worthless eaters, that everybody throws them away. But I see the value in every human life. And so this is what I do 24/7. I don't have to do it. I'm retired from the movie industry. I don't have to do anything. I could be on a beach somewhere drinking a nice smoothie with no alcohol, because I never had alcohol, or smoke any marijuana or any drugs at all, not even pharmaceuticals. I'm totally against it. I'm a herbalist for the last 50 years of my life. I'm 65 now. So what I'm saying is, you can see the results in me, and I'm still learning. That's why my name is J Speed, still learning, because life is a learning curve. And you'll find out when you go inside a Foot Locker, you'll see why they got different sizes. They're all shoes, but different size fit different feet. And there's no importance on a difference between the spark plug and the fuel injection system. You need both to make that engine run. And so that's my straightforward solution for a lot of these things. I talk to older people one way, I talk to younger people another way, and I talk to people in need another way, because each one of them need an antidote to solve their problems.
All right, thanks. Hey, gentlemen, thanks for coming up. I appreciate it. You guys made the show better, because I was like spinning in the wind there, but it was good to have this conversation. Even though I started out one way, I think we hit a lot of good stuff. I think that a lot of the things in the Black community, I believe men are the nexus of where the solution has to come from, but not by bashing women. It's about moving forward. I think that men need to say, listen, I'm developing standards that I'm gonna live by. And one of the things I think I know and learned about women, they follow men who have a direction. And it's gonna take some time before we get where we need to go. And I think it takes all kinds. But on the topic that we were on, I don't think we're ever going to forget about slavery. So I don't think we need to keep mentioning it. That's the way I feel. However, I do understand people who want to need a starting place for us to have these discussions. I don't think we need to go all the way back there. There's a lot of watershed moments from segregation all the way up until now that help shape the way we are and what we and things that we had to overcome and still are overcoming. Well, I kind of disagree with Grant. I think family structure is and families provide the base of a foundation for where we need to move forward. If marriage is down to 30-something% in the Black community, and I'm telling you, outside of class, I think if we looked at it from the class standpoint, I think the higher class people are more married than the people in the inner cities. I'm not so sure. I didn't look that up, but we're around 35%. And the receipts show it ain't working that well, right? Our kids are rudderless. A lot of children are rudderless, whether they have being raised by their mothers and the fathers are going for whatever reason. It almost doesn't matter now. The truth of the matter is it's not working. So if the youth are in trouble, then how are we going to start to raise a lot of good people for the future? So there's a lot of other factors that keep us where we are, and Planned Parenthood might be one of them as well, in terms of the amount of people that are gone because of it. So we've been 13% of the population for around 50 years. Around 50 years, there's a reason for that. And there's some reason for that. And, we should explore some of those things. And the things that's worth changing, we should change. Anyway, this is another interesting show. It started out one way, kind of went around the thing, but again, I was glad that we didn't kind of decompress into just talking about male and female relationships. I think we need to move past that. Women are going to do what they do, and men need to do what we need to do to move forward. And I think that we'll take care of a lot of things as long as we start becoming as productive as we can be. So with that, BMU, thank you. I guess CBN wasn't around. I didn't see him today. But hey, BMU, thanks for letting me up. I appreciate it. And with that, for the people in the chat, thanks for participating and stopping by. And that good night, fellas and ladies. Take it easy.
Agree with the moderator, nor Reverend Robinson, that we want some kind of agreement. We want agreement by which we can live or die. You choose. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillar. Should you try to pretend that I'm crazy because I want America to be saved? And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?